Hey, good morning. It's Global Supply Chain Leaders here from the Woodlands, Carlton Woods. We're so grateful to have everybody here today. We have Sherry Harriman to my left, the Senior Vice President of Supply Chain of Academy Sports and Outdoors. Just a phenomenal background in supply chain. We're so grateful for you to be here, Sherry. John Singleton is the Chairman and CEO of Wen Parker. Uh, what a historic career. He's been at multiple retailers and brands throughout his life, and we are so grateful he's here as well. Rick Gonzalez, another strong senior vice president of TMSFirst, handling many of the retailers and worldwide supply chain. With us virtually, we have Raina Avalon. Raina is executive vice president and Chief Logistics Officer of TJX Companies, also known as TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Home Goods, all those great companies out there. We have Jake Barr, who is CEO of Blue World. Jake has a long history of background of working with some of the top brands in the world, and formerly from Procter & Gamble. And then, of course, we have Bob Davidson. Bob has probably the longest career of everybody here. He's got his feet on age, and he is doing cutting edge SKU technology in one of the most robust cloud WMSs here worldwide with some really top brands. Anyway, let's get it kick started here this morning. And again, thank you everybody for coming. We're going to talk about many different discussions regarding the current supply chain. And with that, I'm going to just jump in with Sherry, if you can tell us a few things about what's been going on in your world and what do you suggest we look for in the future. Thank you.
You bet. So I'm not sure that I've been experiencing anything unique in the rest of the industry, so can't pick up a news article without hearing about the supply chain. But what I will say is that those that have built strong relationships and leverage collaboration, both internally within their organization as well as externally, have been the ones that have been able to navigate through some of the complexities that have been involved over the past couple of years. It hasn't been easy. I think that many would probably say, what's the silver bullet to surviving and navigating a successful company? And I would say that it has taken all of the above.
Absolutely. I would say that probably agreeing with you totally. The balance is really with family because we're all on board, constantly working 24/7. I don't know anybody that's not taking phone calls in the middle of the night still. And you know, you have to balance the family life in order to be successful for the rest of your businesses that you're supporting, without a doubt.
One of the things that's been interesting is I've always thought of supply chain as, we've had a fairly tight-knit group. And I think it's even become even more tight-knit. We've had collaborative conversations with some folks that you might say would be competitors, but it's been supply chain.
Right.
How are you navigating this? Or just bouncing some questions off of each other. And I don't know, it's been refreshing.
That's great. Great to hear that. John, how about yourself? I know for those of you that don't know John, at Wen Parker, I think I'm going to guess here you've done over 400 charters in the last 12 months or so, several thousand, maybe 10,000 air cargo loads. So you are in the heartbeat of ports getting shut down and how do we move things around. So, give us a live feed. I mean, you're seeing it every day.
You're scaring me.
I know.
I think, to the point earlier about all of the above, all of the above has been the answer for the last 2 years. It's great. It's a great overview. We've seen such a remarkable change so fast. The swing was crazy, and really it's about being innovative. How do you get stuff out of a place that lost half of its air capacity when the passenger aircraft went away? Then you start trying to figure out, well, then PPE happened, and all of a sudden it became a huge charter business again. And at that point, you were overwhelming even what they could do before, and so we found ourselves trucking between major cities, Hanoi to Hong Kong, trying to get trucks out, taking trucks from Cambodia to Ho Chi Minh, sometimes from Ho Chi Minh to Hanoi, because it would change week by week. And we actually even had what we refer to as a charter program, where we chartered out of Hanoi into Hong Kong and then chartered out of Hong Kong into the US in order to get all the volume out that was coming. I think at that point we moved about 150 aircraft out of, mostly out of Hanoi. I don't know if you've seen the pictures of them or not, but it's a spoof picture of Hanoi. There's like 800 airplanes all taking off at the same time, which is kind of what's been going on in Vietnam for the last few years. But I think that innovation, and then also the ability to scramble. You know, all the U.S. airports, just like the ocean ports, you hear a lot about the ocean ports, and certainly it's significant. There's 60 or 70 vessels off the coast, and we're being impacted by that some. But we're probably a 90% air business, and all of the airports in the U.S. have been completely pummeled. And we found ourselves going into places like LCK in Columbus, which was Rickenbacker, old Rickenbacker Air Force Base. It's all cargo. What a great idea until everybody found out about it. And all of a sudden it's buying too. So we just landed over the last 3 weeks, four 747s in Greenville, Spartanburg, which is a place I knew it was there. I lived in Charlotte, but I never thought I would bring airplanes into there. But it's a great location if your customers are in the Southeast U.S. And so those guys were happy to get it. They've got a lot of European business, but not a lot of Asian business. That has something to do with that BMW plant there, I think. But anyway, it's been fascinating just trying to keep ahead of the surge. And it comes and goes. It goes in waves. All of a sudden Atlanta will be okay, and then the next day Atlanta's not okay. So it's been dodgy.
Right. How about you, Rick?
Yeah, a lot of things that I've seen and we've been experiencing with me, right, is the ocean port. So basically, John's taking a lot of the materials to collapse lead time and help with capacity and putting it on aircraft. And we all know what's going on with the ocean vessels. And I think that Sherry made a really good point. The people that I see in the industry that are doing the best are those people that actually have relationships and have a level of connectivity with their supply base. And that goes from their suppliers to the manufacturers to the transportation providers. Because, at the end of the day, this isn't the market of the past where you could go out there and beat people over the brow about, how much is it going to cost me to move it. Today, it's about that strategic relationship, securing that capacity, whether it be on aircraft, truck, or ocean, and then making sure that you're giving that partner repeat business so that the capacity remains sustainable. And I was actually having a talk with a customer about a week ago, and the price of containers has come down to, I've seen 13,000, 14,000, but they've got their partners, and it's a little bit more. It's not coming down as slow with their partner base, and it's like, this is a little bit of a dilemma. Do I take a chance and just put a little piece of my capacity onto the ship and lose all the capacity that I have with my strategic partners? So I think that, what COVID has done is it's stretched our imaginations. It's made us innovate. And I think that there's things that we used to take for granted that no longer can be taken for granted. So, how we plan, how we forecast, how we move, and then orchestrating all of that, where it's originating from, where you're going to land it to. And, like John said, there's this little airport next to his house, and he's using it to land aircraft that was basically being fed by Europe, right? And now he's capitalizing on that through innovation with China. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. Raina, it's got to be extremely challenging dealing with leadership issues and things like that. If you could give us some insight there a little bit as to how you deal with those issues in these uncertain times. We're seeing poaching going on of critical people within organizations, and the push and pull has got to be tremendous. And at the same time, coming to the table with your leaders and collaborating to what everybody's been focused on the panel here already. How does that work for you, or how do you see that going on in the industry?
Good question, Jim. I think from what we're dealing with today, probably at the top of the list is talent. I think everybody's recognizing the need to ensure that we are staffed with the proper talent to help us support the things that we're experiencing these days. So from the top of the list for me, in terms of looking at how we develop our team and really when we're starting to look from a hiring standpoint, given what we're up against, we're really looking at, I would say, three top traits. Looking for flexibility. You know, it's gonna be a requirement because no matter what, we're gonna continue to see constant change. And so I think that's something that we've got to make sure that we're looking for, that people are gonna be adaptable, willing to do some things that maybe are outside of the box and ride with those things for a period of time. Critical thinking, solving problems and making decisions is gonna be paramount as we move forward. So I think that's another top of the list. And then the third one that we tend to focus on quite a bit is really self-awareness. Giving remote work and the fact that there's going to be this new hybrid, whatever any of the companies are going to be adopting, because I think that's still, we're going to find what that new normal is over time, because I think people are still testing different times and requirements, days, etc., all of the above. And so given that, there's going to be a limited time for interface because of that separation with being remote. So you want to make sure that people have the ability to understand what's going on around them and being able to engage at a different level than they were able to, because now they're going to have to do it remotely. So they're going to have to be able to, again, take in what they're seeing and then do some recapping and understand what are those things in front of me that I'm seeing and not jump to conclusions. So I think that's also going to be critical. And I think, there's a number of ways that people can, find ways to improve some of their skill sets. And I think that's also, again, what can we do around upskilling and making sure that we're investing time and energy into our talent. And by guiding them through either peer coaching, mentoring, asking them to, read articles, books, there's all sorts of things and opportunities, I think, for people to, again, broaden their landscape in terms of their knowledge. And so really helping them find those opportunities and guiding them, I think, is going to be critical going forward.
Great, Rita. Thank you. Those are really great strategic points. Jake, you get around the world, and I'm not trying to have a challenge here, but we had a discussion that how many people have been flying. A lot of us have been flying or working from central office, could be home or at the headquarters to Raina's point. So we're all doing everything we can possibly do. You call on some of the biggest corporations in the world, and I think you have a vast amount of information that you can share with us and recommendations possibly coming out, or should I say post, but I don't necessarily mean that we're coming out of this environment yet.
Well, I think you've heard some of the answers already, Tim, but let me make sure we go back to the very premise here. This is all John's fault, okay? You just didn't properly build the right kind of.
I accept that.
Okay, but for, on a serious side, you've heard some elements, so let's tie them together, right? So fundamentally, we work across 6 different industry verticals. We've got name points across all of them that we help deliver projects for, but look, no one really truly understood the dramatic ramifications of thousands of businesses reopening and surging at the same time. And so at the end of the day, the comment around strategic partnerships and relationships. So obviously what we're saying is companies that had both primary and secondary sources of supply, that had actually done the proper resiliency testing of the networks for understanding that they were going to run into bottlenecks on occasion and they needed to be able to flex, and they could test out whether those suppliers could actually help them rebalance their networks. That's one. Second, there is unfortunately a huge bullwhip effect going on with companies that are not sophisticated and are behind. And the rest of the global supply chain is actually bearing the brunt for the sins of those companies that haven't spent the time bringing their operations along. Because guys, I'm sorry, but we share a global supply chain. There is a global transportation network. There is a global air freight network. There is a global, right? All of those things are shared ultimately across the industries, across the capacities. the element that Raina was speaking to. Look, we've had a talent issue for going on a decade that's been building a tsunami wave. And this really brought it to bear. Now, obviously, we took people that didn't come back into the workforce that perhaps in many companies that we've seen were some of the most experienced people in those companies that basically said, okay, I've had enough. It's time to check out. And by the way, that exposed the fact that they had not done the proper due diligence with the younger folks in the organization to ground them and prepare them for the challenges that they were taking on. I tie a bow around this and talk about the importance of technology. Guys, the pace at which we compete across these industries is staggering today versus even what it was a couple of years ago. And it's exposed the need to be digitally connected across the ecosystem. You can't just have phone calls, fax, emails, etc. Connecting your neural network with the strategic suppliers you depend upon, because guess what? They're experiencing outages in their tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers at the same time. So the ability to see, Tim, like you provide support for, where is everything in the physical ecosystem? What are the disruptions? And as such, what am I going to spin up in scenarios around availability to serve these segment partners, by the way, who are pretty upset at the moment because they haven't exactly gone through the last 18 months of good service to the consumers that they sell to, right? So you've got an irritable bunch, as I described it, who are all looking feverishly toward the end of this thing. And I hate to tell you, but my projection is we're into at least the early fall of next year before we can really settle things out in a calm way across the collection of industries.
Totally agree, Jake. Very good points. And, I think all of us have experienced one way or another with the port shutting down. How am I going to deal in front end demand? How am I going to use some sort of artificial intelligence so I'm not spending all my time on the phone or emails, tracking constantly of how I can adjust my goods, whether it's coming out from ocean, I have to switch to air. I've had discussions where somebody said, oh, all of a sudden we want to move 100 containers on the airplane. Yeah, John, exactly. And normally the question would be, isn't this cost prohibitive? No, what the real issue is, it's revenue recognition for the quarter. And you got to get that goods out there. And to Jake's point, how many more customers can we afford to be unhappy? Because we know our competitor is going to try to solve that issue and support them with that product that you're trying to deliver to them at that point. So with that,
Tim, if I can pile on for a minute, if we had the illusion that this isn't having a ripple effect on what you're saying in terms of the inflationary impact across pricing in many of the segments.
Right.
Look, I've got a couple of clients, and I'll leave the names out of it, but just this past quarter alone, for one of them, between $1 billion to $1.5 billion hit on the bottom line, just because of the ecosystem costs of trying to bring the supply chain of the goods back into the market to cover outages that they had. I mean, imagine, that's staggering.
right, absolutely. And the decision not to do that would have been failure in a major quarterly miss. So the money has to be spent, and at the same point, I think where you have your strategic collaborative relationships that we're talking about, you want to help that partner to make sure they get their goods for you, because you want to be focusing on that other 20% that's a nightmare, and figuring out whether you got to call John and get a air cargo in and out of there as fast as possible to make those goods there. So, then we have the D2C effect. Everybody's talking about D2C going to 50% and all that other great stuff. Bob, what's your thoughts there? I know you do a lot of both retailers and D2C brands as well. What are you seeing?
Well, good morning, everybody. We see that we mostly deal with the second tier enterprises, and we recognize that since 2020, February 2020, that time has collapsed, and now everybody that had been holding off on automating systems, working quasi manually, that's all gone away. And it's just been unbelievable, the amount of business that we're getting. I mean, our funnel is full. And what we're finding is that not only are they wanting extremely flexible systems, they're now interested in, being able to access through multiple warehouses. Distributed order management is extremely important. Automation is really important. We're implementing A-frames on the cosmetic side, 3PLs, just went go live with a very large Locus Robotics program. And I mean, I can remember talking to this president a couple of years ago, and he had so many people within that 3PL that, he had many of them that were still on paper and using 5 or 6 folks to manage each of those companies. And now, since he's automated in so many ways, this guy's just been unbelievable. I mean, he's running 1 to 1.5 personnel now per line. And, I'm finding that automation and systems, they're not using the word, but it's really deflationary. And automation, and it's coming big time. And I'm in the second tier space, so I'm not with the multi-billion-dollar companies. I'm with the hundreds of millions, $250 million companies, and it's absolutely explosive. To reduce personnel, the thing I'm finding about the automation side, the conversations we're having is they can now hire less skilled employees, of which there's a huge basket of those available, and have them now partner with a picking robot and to be trained quickly. Another part of the automated completion process, I deal with a lot of seasonal people. For instance, the Halloween space, which was monstrous this year. It was $11 billion this year, the biggest they've ever had. And one manufacturer has told me that they went from having to bring somebody in 30 to 45 days ahead of time, or many employees, temps, they can now bring them in 2 hours ahead of time and put them with experienced guys on RF scanners and an easy step-by-step process and have them trained within 2 hours. And the accuracy is off the charts compared to the way it was. And there's just so many processes. Payman, the owner of the company, says to me, I used to get dinged so many times about missing boxes and incorrect weights and things, and I had no way of defending ourselves. I just accepted it. And now we can tell you exactly what the carton was on that pallet, the weight of it, the size of it, everything that was in it, and that they need to go back through their system and check because it's there, it arrived. And so I just use that as an example. I know I'm kind of dialing in, but I'm just talking about how it is. I mean, we're in the auto space, 3PL, electronics. On the electronic side, we're finding we're shipping about 40% of all the TV monitors in America. TCL, Hisense, Pioneer, BenQ, and they need really flexible systems. I mean, if they've got a problem with a series of a lot number, then they need to be able to just to pull that lot number. And we're able to do that for them. I mean, we're really granularly dialing in with many of our customers. It's getting a lot more intimate.
One quick question for you, Bob. I think many people, just to give them insight, he sits in where there's 2 billion of square foot warehousing space out, call it Long Beach and east of that area.
Yeah.
Do you see a tremendous amount of people now finally switching to robotics? Or is there still a lag? Because obviously that's the biggest labor problem is right in that heartbeat.
Is that question to me, Tim?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, yeah, it's a matter of fact, now, we have a whole other side to our company, so we're consultants as well. We started off as consultants, and so today, we're monstrously involved. We built Avectus ourselves, but we're also implementers for those first-tier WMSs. So we're inside the Nordstrom's, Kingston Technology, Safe Light, the list goes, Costco, they bought a bunch of Sears warehouses. And so I get to see our team, we're all inside the same facility. So our consulting team and us, we have conversations about the processes. And we really recognize that the second tier guys have the same problem as the first tier guys, they're just less zeros involved. And so, and we recognize they don't have the same team, so we have to build all sorts of tools to make it really easy, to make it unbelievably flexible for their B2B and B2C side. And we find that the automation, it's in every conversation now. How quickly can we get the system in here? And these are the automation processes that we've been speaking with. What do you guys think is the best? And of course, we can pull our consulting guys in. We deal with everything. So we're in a very fortunate situation.
Thanks, Bob. Sherry, I want to get back a little bit of what is the best way somebody can think about working on a collaborative idea if they don't understand how important collaboration is with their network. What would you suggest they start doing, if they haven't done already? How will that help them bring more cohesiveness within their supply chain?
Well, I tell you, in this industry, trying to build the strategic partnerships would be tough.
Right.
We're just now getting started. I think with anything, you start one partnership at a time.
Absolutely.
We've heard a lot of collaborative and adaptiveness of teams has to be there. It may feel scrappy at times, where you're just, okay, this didn't work. How do we make this work? And I think when you're transparent with your partners and companies, it tends to bring that defensive wall down, like we're just trying to all figure this out together. And I think that's where solutions come out. So I would just say, start one partner at a time. Be very transparent, find out how can we create a win-win scenario, and then it slowly starts building trust. But it would be very hard if you're just starting to try and build relationships in this kind of environment, because you have to build that trust first so that you can bring those defensive, self-protective mechanisms that are within organizations down, so that you can then create innovative, adaptive, simple solutions.
Great points. That, clearly, if you haven't done that by now, you're probably having major failures and things like that within your supply chain. Jake, do you have anything to add there?
Well, I think, look, I want to echo the comment. If you haven't already done some of the legwork of trying to do the due diligence of figuring out first, who are the strategic suppliers I'm going to go and try and build a deeper relationship with, you're behind the power curve, right? I mean, trying to do it right now in the moment of crisis is very difficult. Now, having said that, hey, you never waste a good crisis, right? It's always the opportunity for a breakthrough. So focusing on walking the value chain, as I call it, actually you've picked out a partner, you've got one that you really need to build the relationship, actually walking end to end through the supply chain of where the low-hanging fruit opportunities are. You'd be surprised how the lights on both sides of the table go on attacking, some easy to fix and remedy issues. And some of it is just, I hate to say it, but it's it's kindergarten-like stuff. It's recognizing that we really haven't had a very efficient way of understanding what demand that needs to be passed through the pipe and what's the reaction time to it. And why are we seeing the spikes to it, right? Well, is it because you're anticipating, or is it because you don't trust? Because I've averaged 70% on supply reliability in terms of on-time performance over the last, so I'm actually hedging, right? Not to say anyone would hedge right now. There's been a tsunami of hedging across different companies, which has only exacerbated part of the problem. So we focus on the day-to-day. Let's get a partner that we need to build a relationship with. It's going to continue to be strategic. Let's focus on some basic fundamental blocking and tackling. And then as Bob was saying, hey, look, process automation is here to stay. It is. I don't care what process you want to touch, whether it's from the front side of demand through execution, finite scheduling in the plants, detailed deployment, replenishment planning, into the partners, all of it. Anyone who's doing stuff manually today, they're hanging a giant going out of business sign in front of their foreheads, and they just don't realize it yet. You've got to do that with what Rayna was talking about on the talent side. Look, it's a talent deficit, and we've got a people deficit. You just can't fix problems the same old way.
Right, I think that's absolutely a great point. You're probably getting ready for a bankruptcy, you just don't even know it yet if you haven't collaborated by this point, because the bullwhip factor will also smash you at the same point, and you're just gonna have major debt issues because you haven't made things work right, and you're reacting is overreacting. So, I mean, to that point, John, you see all kinds of things, you know, with having the air cargo portion and balancing it with more and more in the container business. For you, you've actually been increasing your container business, ocean, during that. And I think, you know, some of that to me is the most amazing thing, that here you do a tremendous amount of air cargo and you were still able to help customers get ocean capacity. And I think that is gotta be about your collaborative relationships with the steamships and the forwarders to make that happen.
Yeah, we stumbled, and I will say that with the going out of business out of my head, because we haven't been a big ocean carrier, because there hasn't been a lot of margin in it, and frankly, most of our customers are big enough to have their own contracts, and so they go directly to the lines to get their contracts, and we are happy with that because we then do their air. This year, of course, they did not, their contracts weren't honored, and so they came to us saying, can you find this space? I mean, we're talking about big players. You know, $30-40 billion players coming to ask for space. Well, we could get it on the secondary market, and they were $15,000, $16,000, $17,000, but really exposed how not good we are at it, frankly. You know, it's like we didn't have our air business and our air process is pretty rock solid. Our ocean process, we must have ADD or something, look at squirrel, because an airplane lands pretty quick and you can follow that pretty easily. But you throw something on the water for 30 days and we lose our attention span, it seems like. And it's because we didn't have the tools. I mean, frankly, we didn't buy into those tools when we had the opportunity to, but we never viewed ourselves as a big ocean carrier. And frankly, I don't know that we will be a big ocean carrier in the future, just because as an NVOCC, our customers are going to be able to get back into their contracts again sometime in the future, perhaps not at $3,500 a container, but they'll get back into those contracts and they won't need us for that purpose. But had we not gone digital in 2017 like we did worldwide, 75% of our employees are in Asia. And of course, when the pandemic started, Shanghai shut down first, followed by Shenzhen, followed by Hong Kong. And then the US started shutting down, and then our offices all over Southeast Asia started shuttering. And everybody worked from home. Every single person in our business worked from home, and we never skipped a beat. And it was because we were on one platform, it was all up in the cloud, we didn't have to worry about, we could ship it, we could track it, we could trace it, we could deliver it, we could bill it, and do it all. If it had happened in 2017, we'd have been dead. So lucky there. I think that's, but the idea that you could continue to not have systems to track this stuff worldwide is literally crazy. So we're not that crazy.
Exactly. Rick, how do you handle it today?
So, what I'm seeing and what a lot of customers are actually asking for is the ability just to see a simple ASN, when did it ship? And then, anytime an event happens, that there's a delay, that the shipment isn't gonna come in, they want immediate notification. If you kind of think about what I just said, and you're not tracking aircraft, or you're not tracking ships, or you're not tracking trucks, the ability to see that can come when the customer calls you up and starts asking you the question, and then you can't get back to them because you've got to make phone calls and you've got to do email. So I think that what we're seeing now is a transition, just like John said. You know, if you weren't digital, you need to become much more automated than you were in the past. The reliance on typical communication means are actually starting to go to the wayside. And really what people are looking for is a platform or some sort of cloud capability where they can see what's going on, when it's picked up, how it's moving, is it late or is it on time, and then is it going to the end destination? Because, I mean, I think Bob can kind of talk a little bit about this too, but the scheduling at the docks with the labor issues that we've been experiencing right now has been enormous. So if a truck is supposed to come in and it doesn't come in, there's this whiplash effect with the people that you've got working there if you're not completely automated with robotics. So you've got to bring in labor pools, pay them extra money, pay them overtime, just because a weather event happens or a mechanical failure, or you've got the issues with port congestion.
Yeah, great points.
And by the way, that's air and ocean and the railheads as well.
Great points. And it's all about customer service. So, I mean, we use the example of, I've got 100,000 shirts coming in from Vietnam, China, wherever. And the visibility issue is huge. So can you track all those shirts all the way down once they hit the port and hit the deconsolidation center? And oh, by the way, what if you have a growing D2C operation and all of a sudden you have demand up in San Francisco or some other location? You have to have that fully automated from an AI or business intelligence standpoint to reallocate those goods as fast as possible. So basically, if you're in competition to Amazon or somebody else, a different brand, you got to make sure you fulfill and make that customer happy. So those are very critical of the total experience. We know we're all going to have difficulties in different parts of each leg, whether it's the first mile to last mile, but that's, you know, we're all hanging on to the ride, making sure all our customer and consumers are happy. I'm going to start opening it up for questions. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. Don't be shy and for anything. So anybody have a question? All right, so we'll keep going. we gotta get the shot. Go ahead.
Jim, if I could, can I pile on the last example that was offered around fundamentally the ability to understand where that material is in the physical supply chain, right?
Yep.
So as John clearly understands, look, unfortunately, the ebbs and flows of certain airports, ocean terminals, et cetera, is constantly changing. And it's not changing by week, it's changing by day and by hour and shift within the day. And so literally, it's not just good enough anymore to know, oh yeah, I did find a way to put it and book time to get it loaded on that aircraft. And oh, by the way, the aircraft is supposed to go all the way to Charlotte, you know, the Charlotte airport, where, right, from a destination standpoint. But we're already seeing that the queue time to clear in Charlotte, and we're not even loaded yet, is now shifted. It's 2 days longer than it was. Well, wait, these are time-sensitive goods. So I literally now, so why I'm bringing it up is this aspect Bob was raising earlier of the automation process, and I'll call it digitization of it, is taken on an increasing level of intelligence. So whether you're directly using it now or not, look, AI and ML capabilities capabilities embedded into processes is also here to stay.
In real time.
In real time, as Bob
Yes.
knows. So whether you're getting your feet wet in it, where you're only using it to help do some predictive analytics, right? To do data mining of it, or
Skew velocities.
exactly. So your throughputs in your building, Bob, right, and your picking lines, and you're predetermining based on flow rates, where to redirect the work, the product, the truck, right, all of it. So it has a ripple effect across multi-processes.
Yeah.
And I can't say enough about it, because the reality is we've only scratched the surface of what it's been able to help during this time of crisis, but it's exploding.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah, great points. Question?
Yeah, I've got a question. So it seems like everybody's talking about reacting at this point. Is anybody actually applying machine learning, predictive analytics with your suppliers as well as your end users or your customers to sort of go into the predictive mode as opposed to just reacting?
Yeah, so the question was very focused, for those of you who didn't hear it, is who is working on utilizing predictive analytics and rather than reactive? And I'll let anybody on the panel go with this question, but I would first say, clearly, you're going to get your reactive stuff under control that day, and then make sure everything's humming either with AI or some sort of predictive analytics to make sure the rest of the day isn't so horrible, I guess a better way to put it. But with that, you know, I don't know who would like to touch on that. Good.
I'll throw in a couple examples. John, go ahead.
Okay, I think, from an air freight perspective, you know, knowing where your customers need freight, where it's coming from, when they need all that stuff, we've always done that. I think the challenge right now is there isn't enough capacity in the lanes, and everybody's doing predictive, including the airlines or the air owners. So trying to buy something into the future right now is next to impossible, because they, you know, I don't. It used to, was it 2.5 years ago, it was $2.50 a kilo to come out of Shanghai. The last Shanghai charter that we bought was $2.4 million, which it was $400,000 back then, 2.4 million. So the airlines are kind of going, am I going to be able to get 2.4 million out of this next week or next month or, you know, 6 months from now? And so they're not real willing to give you much of an opportunity to buy into a future state where you can say, I've got fixed assets going available coming out of Shanghai for the next year and a half, because of that. And so I think the nature of this crazy business we're in right now makes it really hard to be predictive, because even if you can predict your own business, you can't predict the marketplace. And I think, you know, we're talking about, is it going to start stabilizing maybe next fall? Maybe. I think the flow of goods will start stabilizing next fall, but I don't think the pricing will start stabilizing until probably the first of 2023 or something. But I think that's my challenge.
Yeah, I think that when you're kind of looking at where we were 2 years ago and you're looking at where we are now, a lot of the things that really didn't have to do with transportation, you know, your manufacturing, your sourcing, the suppliers being on time, you know, typically it'd be a few days later, a few days early. That helped with the predictability, right? Right now, when you're talking about predictive analytics and things like that, you're really looking at a workflow engine that's looking at for something to, it's expecting something to happen. And if it doesn't happen, somebody has to go on and fix it or remedy it or alert somebody that it's not going to happen. So we've kind of shifted to a more reactive mode, just simply because we're in crisis right now. That's my thought.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Quick question on automation. I'm hearing a lot about AI, cloud, and business intelligence and machine learning, real-time automation, process automation, and all of this makes sense. And this is, you know, these are things we've been hearing for years and years, and finally they're starting to be implemented. What are you hearing about blockchain in the mix?
A blockchain, well, clearly blockchain is good from a standpoint on the serialization side. We have customers that are using it.
Not so much what is it good for, what are you actually seeing those in the real world? That's what I want.
Well, what we're seeing from our customers, I think, we'll have a customer talk about this later on today, but we're seeing it more utilized internationally than anything in the transfer of goods internationally. For example, we'll have Dean Al talk about how they're using it in Egypt. We have chemical companies also believing that they're gonna really be forthcoming, that 50% of their business will be blockchain moving forward from an international perspective. I don't know if anybody else is utilizing blockchain on the retail or brand side of business at this point.
So you're seeing it overseas more than over here?
We are, yes, we are, as TMSFirst, absolutely.
You know, blockchain is just a digital ledger. And so it's just, people are starting to recognize, I mean, we're giving it all kinds of fancy words, but they're now starting to pay attention to details within their own processes. And I think that everybody's worn out being reactive. And the only real way of moving forward is becoming very proactive about everything, taking control of everything that's inside your four walls, or any number of four walls where you need to supply your customers, either B2B or B2C. So, you know, we hear about AI. You know, I got two partners in our company, and these guys are mathematicians and they're PhDs, and they're saying all this stuff about AI and blockchain, it's just data. And it's really understanding, and look at, see, I even see Rena, I see a smile there, that it's just learning how to manage data in a very smart way.
Tim, if I can offer two examples that follow up what you did on the predictive analytics. Look, we've got a lot of clients who have moved to finally using it in a way that helps get them ahead of the puck where you're skating on the ice relative to the supplier engagement. So there was a comment in the room around, well, wait, you know, reliability was expected in terms of how a supplier was getting materials or goods to you, right? Well, unfortunately, I want you to think about on an average day, how many hundreds or thousands of shipments that you've got in flight from your various suppliers. So the predictive analytics that we're seeing and helping to leverage there is actually being able, as Bob said, to data mine and look across and see, wait a minute, these four suppliers over the last, 3 days, 1 week, whatever time frame you want to focus it on, have got less and less reliable over that time frame. We've got a problem. We need to step out and think about either an alternative source of supply or get ahead of understanding why have they dropped so miserably so quickly here in the span of just a couple of days or a week, right? So especially when you're not talking about single shipments coming from people, you're talking about a lot of shipments coming from people. So that's one. The second is we're injecting it into the suppliers in partnership, as we were talking in room 4 around strategic suppliers. Wait a minute, when I have 3 or 4 suppliers that are mission critical to me around what their throughputs are, using the predictive analytics to understand, for example, what their yield rates are on certain items that I order from them. In one client, we literally determined that their run rates from this critical packaging supplier were 2.5 times better on a material, on a cap, it was an enclosure, than it was on the balance of the items that they ordered from them. And they're going, wait a minute, we never seen this data. Well, crap. If we just change the enclosure on this, we're going to pick up literally 2.5 points of process reliability over the span. It was hundreds of thousands of units that they were affected, that they were ordering from them every month. But again, it's crunching. It's the ability to analyze the data and get into it and get ahead of the power curve so you can preemptively take action.
Totally
So,
agree.
Tim, I'm going to weigh in on, just as I'm listening to all of the conversation as it relates to systems, tools, etc. Honestly, if we really want to get proactive as opposed to reactive, it still goes back to the talent. I mean, right now, we're in the midst of the Great Resignation. We're in an area of, I would think, in the supply chain that we're probably going to see it more. You talk about analytics, and the challenge I think we're facing is there's a fight for talent, particularly analysts, as an example. So what are those things that we're doing to help ensure that we're retaining talent? What's the time being spent to help encourage engagement and retention so that you can be proactive in looking at these things that are in front of us? So I think it's really important for everyone to really consider, because I think oftentimes we look to the tools, we look to technology, we look to a lot of other things instead of our teams. So I think it's really important to consider what are those things that you're doing from a retention standpoint, from an engagement standpoint, and how you're enabling the people to really start to identify just what you're referencing in this conversation. So I'm curious to hear what others are doing in terms of that focus, because I think that's going to be what makes the difference in terms of our ability to be proactive in this space.
Yeah, I totally agree. You got to have key members of your team and come to the numbers second. And the numbers are going to tell you where some key points are. We use predictive analytics and AI with many of our customers all the way from the front end of first mile all the way to the end, the customer experience, everything you can think of. But at the end of the day, if somebody isn't talented enough on your team to work with the collaboration ideas, understanding why certain of these numbers are going a distinct other way, and maybe they're just reading into it the wrong way, those are critical. And to have a strong team in this environment has got to be the most number one highest priority, without a doubt, because no one can waste any time constantly being reactive.
We've been blessed for a long time. Kind of started out as a small family business, and we have had hardly any turnover. And I think, the great resignation has been going on. And our problem, I don't even know is that. I think our problem is we have everybody stressed out. It used to take like one phone call and one check on the system to figure out what was going on. And you knew at the end of that what was going to happen. Very predictive. It's amazing how good the worldwide supply chain was. I mean, it truly is. You can see how good it was because of what's going on right now, I think. But when our people started having to make 10 phone calls to get ambiguous answers, they started getting stressed out, and they continue to be. And I think we've had a couple people resign simply. They just said, I just can't take the stress. So I've had to go out to my people and say, give yourselves a break. You can't be as good as you used to be. Tell this to our customers. Everybody needs to know we can't be as good as we used to be because we're in the middle of this craziness. And if you don't give your people that kind of a break, even I tell them the same thing, give your colleague a break too, because they're all working hard, they just can't find the answer. And I think that's a reality that nobody likes to talk about, but if you don't do that, take the stress off, we'll get more, and we don't need more trouble.
Yep. Everybody's family, no matter whether you're 5 people or 10,000 or 300,000.
And I think that's why helping provide the tools so that they get more real-time visibility to make the decisions,
Absolutely.
that helps relieve that stress, because there's not enough time in a day to do the manual data mining that used to occur. And so the more that you can provide tools that simplify that process, that help them be innovative and make a decision in a very uncertain environment, the less stressed it is. I mean, it's stressful right now.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
hear across the industry, but I think the more you can streamline the data that makes it meaningful, that helps them make the decision they needed to make, to go to, hey, second option, third option, okay, hey, that's how you can get a little bit predictive.
Right. Well, I want to thank everybody. This has been absolutely an amazing panel. I'm first going to announce some awards for the virtual side of things, since I just can't squeeze it through the mic or anything. Raina Avalon, you're being recognized as a Global Supply Chain Logistics Leader of the Year. Thank you so much for everything you've done.
All right.
Bob Davidson, a VP for Real-Time Forecasting and SKU Velocity Leader. I think every customer should be grateful, whoever gets that technology from you. That is awesome what you're bringing to the table. Thank you. Jake Barr. Maybe we'll see you someday physically, right, John? I don't know. Without a doubt, Jake Barr, Global Digital D2C Transformation Leader of the Year. You've been making such an impact out there. Congratulations and thank you for being many friends to many of us. Thanks, Jake. To our left, if you could grab Rick, I would appreciate it. For Sherry Harriman, most recently met Sherry. I know she's been here for a couple of years here in Houston. For those of you who don't know her, she is really an exemplary executive that came out of Walmart and came to our place here. And I think we owe her a big Texas welcome by making her Global Supply Chain Leader of the Year. Thank you, Sherry. John Singleton, I can't say enough. For those of you who don't know John, he was at Abercrombie French, Ann Taylor, tried to turn around several different companies. And when I sat down with John, I think it was 6 years ago, he has been on fire, not pre the whole pandemic, and has just really taken Gwen Parker to the next level of being flat out a rocket ship. Maybe we can get you some rockets to move some cargo soon, but congratulate John as Global Supply Chain Technology Leader of the Year. Thank you. And then, I've done a really terrible job. I've been trying to hide this from Rick all day long. So Rick, congratulations, Global Supply Chain Technology Solutions Leader of the Year. Thank you, Rick. We have 2 minutes to the next panel. We're going to exit to the left. I'm going to bring up Jerry Lewis and our big 9 or 10 person team for the next panel. Please make your way. We're going to have a photo op out the back doors here quick, and we'll get started in 2 minutes on the next panel. Thank you very much.